Hello and welcome to Colleague 7's Sprint Review for 17.10.01. This is for the development undertaken between the 4th of October to the 17th of October. Looking at the sprint goal, and our plan was to finalise the upgrade of Colleague's memory cache and admin architecture to support and enable further performance improvements. This is whilst refining the product based on client demand. So looking at the high level items and to explain further, in this sprint, we've delivered the memory cache upgrade, utilising the Redis solution in Azure. This will enhance Colleague 7's memory management moving forwards. We've applied a bug fix relating to the radius search and how that manages postcode searching and its relationship with the chosen country. We've updated the documents area so that it displays a HTML version of the document or the past CV. And as part of that, we've also resolved an issue relating to certain document types automatically downloading. We now have the option to default the formatting of the text editor window, namely allow for default font, size and paragraph styling. The documents received area has been updated so that the parsing process allows for multiple attachments to an email. A disallow history edit option has been implemented so that specific history types can be set as read-only. There's also a user privilege setting to override this. And we've included a notes area to the main tab of the candidate and contact record. This will pull through notes as requested by a user setting. We'll now go for a short demonstration on the key features from this sprint. Okay, so the first area I'd like to cover is the notes window that's been added to the main tab of the candidate and contact record. It's appropriate to do that because it's obviously present and will be present on the other demos that we do as well. So the notes window, the way it appears, essentially it's copying across the content from a note tab that you've specified against your user settings. So in this instance, notes 1 has been set against my user setting, so the contents of Notes 1 is appearing in this window here. This is also editable as you see fit, and it will obviously come across over into the Notes tab as well, and vice versa. Any updates will obviously be represented there. So it's essentially just a way of being able to access notes from the main tab of that candidate record. Now in terms of the user setting, and obviously the user settings are accessed here, I've got it open as another tab here, they're accessed from here. So within the candidate area, you've obviously got the notes section here that you can choose. So here you would select which note tab that you would like to have displayed, and we'll have it defaulted as Notes 1. And for contact as well, again the Notes tab that you want to have it displayed, and again it will be defaulted as 1 there. So that's the update that we've made relating to displaying notes on the main candidate and contact tab. Okay, so the next point I'd like to cover relates to the document preview area that we've updated relating to displaying documents in HTML format, but also there was a bug fix associated with that as well. So against the Documents tab, when we click on this area, first of all, point of note that there is now a piece of loading text that loads when you are transitioning between the different documents, just to give that assurance that the document is obviously loading. The PDF viewer will work as it did before, but you'll notice that this is a docx file, and on clicking on this docx file, rather than showing a plain text version as before, what we're now getting is a fully formatted version of that document displayed in this preview window. So it's a far better display of that document without the need to view it in either a plain text format or download the file to view it as you would expect to see it. As far as older filing formats, so document types, that's still in a plain text format, and obviously images will come through as you'd expect them to. But the key update here relates to ensuring that the performance relating to the document preview was worked on, so speed is improved. The conversion of a docx file so it displays as a HTML file in here and obviously is fully formatted. And the prevention of certain document types downloading automatically, that should no longer occur on this window. So that's the work that we've done relating to the document preview area. Okay, so the next area I wanted to cover was the text editor default value options that you can now apply when using the text editor. When I say text editor, what I'm actually referring to is this window, this panel that you can see whenever you're sending an email or creating a letter. It's this mechanism that we've built in as part of colleague 7 to allow you to have different formatting options whenever you're doing those functions. But what you couldn't have before was the option to default the font, the size, or when I say formatting, the key thing that we're offering the option to default here is essentially the paragraph settings, and that was essentially the original source to the issue that was prompting the request. So against user settings, what you'll find is against a text editor section here against your user settings, you'll have the option to default the block format to be either paragraph, div, or pre. You'll have the text editor option the font family option of which font you wish to select, and also the sizing as well. So against the text editor, what you can then do is obviously just begin typing, safe in the knowledge that it's going to be in the default format that you want it to be. On the topic of the formatting style, it was a good point made by the client in question, and that's that you can assign a different paragraphing style. So the standard paragraphing is just normal paragraph, and that has this sort of spacing element relating to whenever you're doing carriage returns. Whereas obviously formatting that you would want to have delivered similar to what your experience would be within Outlook would be a single line paragraph spacing, and that's using a paragraph option called div. If we set this back to div, and it's going to be set back to div because of the default setting I applied there, then what that means is you can essentially have single line spacing whenever you're doing carriage returns, which is obviously a far better line spacing mechanism whenever you're sending. So there's now an option to obviously set that as default, and obviously it will be shipped with those settings essentially being empty. So it will just default back to whatever your previous settings were, basically when you were using them, I think Arial of some kind. But if you want to set them to be a specific type, then you can obviously make those setting changes there. And those settings can be at a global level as well, or a user setting level. So you can apply those settings across the board so that it doesn't have to be delivered on a per user basis. But that's the updates that we made against the text editor. Okay, so the next point I wanted to cover was relating to the documents received area and the work that's gone in there relating to how it manages multiple attachments against an email. So previously the issue that was existing here was that if an email had come in with multiple attachments against it, on parsing it through this process, it would parse essentially the first attachment it found against that email address rather than perhaps either all of the attachments or specific attachments that are against the email. What will happen now is on selection of an email and you receive the parse attachment and attach a document options that you had before, on clicking on parse attachment, if there are multiple attachments against that email, it will bring down this list, and you'll be able to select which attachment from that email that you want to basically parse, and on selection of that you can then parse the attachment. If there's only one attachment against the email, then it will obviously, on pressing parse attachment, it will just parse as it does currently. But that's an inclusion that we've added so that you can factor in multiple attachments against the email. We've also updated the styling in this area to update similar to the rest of the system. This is one of the few areas that we hadn't incorporated that. So there is obviously a show and hide option, and also if you click on the email it will open, and if you click on it again it will close. So it's just a little bit more user friendly in that regard as well. But that's the updates that we made so far to the documents received area. Another point to cover relates to the radius search. So this was we made several updates to this area. To start with, we've added an option to assign a default country against the user. So if you are obviously specifically searching against certain countries, you can set that default country now against your user setting for radius. So you've got it obviously set there as the UK, and that will obviously always appear there when we're going to that area. But previously there was an issue relating to postcodes that are the same in different countries. For example, I think there's postcodes that are the same in Switzerland and Sweden or France, and essentially in those instances where you have postcodes that are the same in different countries, the country setting obviously really matters in terms of dictating that it should be the postcode from that country. And what we were seeing is scenarios, or what clients were seeing, sorry, was scenarios that obviously where it was getting muddled there with that. So we've locked that down now properly, so that the postcode and country relationship is correct across the board. And that's really the update that's been made there. That and the user setting there. Okay, the last point to cover relates to the option to disallow history edits against certain history types. So when against any entity record on the history, you'll see that obviously you have access to the different histories that have been raised against those records, and on opening those histories, you obviously then in turn have the option to further edit them should you wish. Now, for workflow instances where things have been done at certain dates and time, and also just for general security and data auditing, you may want to restrict certain users from being able to edit those, or just certain history types from being edited, period. So what we've incorporated here is the option, if we go to the admin area of the lookups option, sorry. And then under history codes, you'll see all the history codes here. And as an example, I'll select telephone, I think. And then you can see you've got an option there of disallow edit. So if we set that to yes, and I'll go back to admin there. And if I now refresh this candidate, just let it come through, and then go to the history tab. You'll see that this history is now non-modifiable. It's a read-only history that's been set, and obviously that update can be applied to any history type against the system. Now against admin as well, there's also the option to go within user group permissions and assign the privilege to allow a history edit, which you can see here, to full access. So on the basis of that being set to full access, regardless as to this situation of this record being set there, if I was to refresh this, what you'll basically see is my user privilege now allows me to essentially override that setting. And you can see there, it's now editable again. So histories can now be set to read only, and if need be, obviously certain users can be given the privileges to be able to override that setting should you wish. And that's the update we've made there. As always, if you have any queries or feedback, please get in touch. I'll be keen to hear from you. Also, for those using Colleague 7, feel free to submit your enhancement requests via the user voice integration. The next video will be the sprint plan for 17.10.02, and as always that will contain a high-level overview on the items we intend to work on during that sprint. Thanks for watching.